So, having been involved in Colombo Fashion Week for so long, you started the inaugural Ceylon Literary and Arts Festival. I think it just concluded a few days ago. Could you tell us a little bit about it? How was it? How did you manage? I think we had international and local writers, 50-50, poets, and also I think it's different from the Golded Fest because it's got the art component as well. There's a lot of it's different to just being about the writing. So, could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, no, that's so. I think just before the Araglia started, I think there was no Gaul Literary Festival happening at that time because I think there was a gap. So we, irrespective of that, we started working on this platform, which I kind of studied few festivals, and then obviously I had a chat with Ashok. But before that, I was like Fazina, who's our co-founder. So we had this whole conversation. Okay, what can we create for Sri Lanka that profiles Sri Lanka internationally? Right, which profiles Sri Lanka's art and culture. So we looked at the Edinburgh International Festival, Hay, Jaipur Lit Festival. We realized that these festivals are, though they use the word literature, they're pretty much creative festivals. Yeah, so I said, okay, let us use literature 50%, right, and then bring art, film, music to add to that, and that's how was the composition of it. Idea was very simple. How do we build profile for Sri Lanka internationally? Because tourism is a very important part for Sri Lanka, and we realized that every time tourists come or we go out as tourists, we always get engaged with art and culture, right? So when you have when a destination has a flourishing or a vibrant creative industry or a culture based creative industry, is very attractive for tourism, very attractive for travelers. So they want to come and watch this, see this, do things. So I thought, okay, if we profile Sri Lanka like that, it will be very attractive for the tourists to come or travelers to come. Then what happens is you'll always see that for investors, every time there's a flourishing, again, my same thing, there's a flourishing and a vibrant creative industry, they always get the confidence that must be safe place to invest because the sensitive industry is doing well. So any country around the world where there's turmoil, you see creative industry don't really do well. So it was indirect thing of, okay, it's a good place. It's not so bad. See, there are fashion weeks happening. They have literature festivals happening. There's art festivals happening. So the idea was to profile Sri Lanka at a time when Sri Lanka needed it the most.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's when we started working on it. It took us 2 years to work on it. Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, the composition was very different, and you want to build on it now, and so it has a strategic initiative. It's a platform like we created for fashion and design, and obviously, like I said, all creative industries are quite integrated. They all have
That's right.
commonality to the whole thing, so it's easy to move from one to the other. So we are good at creating platforms, and we're very good at driving the fashion design industry, and these industries are very very integrated in the sense that you'll always say, if you look at films, fashion designers play a very important role in films. How your costume is done. You look at art, designers get influenced by art, right?
Yeah.
Music, fashion week or fashion thing, when you present fashion has music, so everything is very integrated either
Right.
ways.
And I think on the retail side, Ajay, especially, I think supply chains are a big part of it. So I suppose platforms like yourselves,
Yeah.
Building these networks are very essential to the retail aspect as well as the art
Absolutely.
of it. Right?
Absolutely, because that's what the role of platform. It's a lot of people think, oh, that's a good event. I never do events. I work on platforms. So
Great.
so because platform have depth.
Right.
Like I said, there's a development aspect to it. There is a nurturing aspect to it. There's media. There's retail. You can integrate craft in it, right? So it becomes a solid platform which kind of drives the ecosystem,
Right.
of a society. So that is the whole objective of how we create this and how we're going to take this further.
Right. So I spoke to the curator of the Ceylon Literary Festival, Ashok Ferry, and he made a very interesting point, similar to what you're making, that a lot of time a country's sort of soft power comes from their culture and their arts, and that it's sort of how a country can put its best foot forward in a sense. So, and you mentioned it in terms of tourism as well. So, what was the feedback like from most of the foreign writers? How did they engage with Sri Lankan artists, and did you get much feedback? Did you feel a good vibe at the festival?
Yeah, no, the vibe was great because that's a good point that you just said. Or so I'm a firm believer of soft power. That's what I always try to put it into people who work with me in their mind that, look, we're working on soft power. We influence them with art and culture.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
We like, for example, one of the authors who came was Shribani Basu. She's got a very nice book, says how curry conquered Britain.
Yeah.
So so that's soft power. You want to eat like chicken curry or something. So the soft power plays a very important role. So now the idea was when the authors come here and they work with, so it's very important what kind of a immersion you're giving them, right? So we created that from the beginning they landed here. Every small detail, from how we had the fire dancers to things like that, at a superficial level, right? Then at deeper level, the dialogues were engaging, right? So we had a Sri Lankan author most of the time, or a Sri Lankan moderator, having a discussion with them, who have come from across the across the Park Street or across any other country, yeah. So that kind of dialogue was very important. Then Ashok created very interesting themes for them to work on. So that was really good. And then like Ashok was the curator for the literature festival. We had 3 other curators. One was for the art, one was for music and film. So now, all their roles were different curation roles. Idea was that, okay, literature this time was, I think, 60% was literature. No, 70% weight was on literature. 30% was on the other 3. 10 each. But I think next year what we're going to do is we're going to increase that a little more, so it becomes 50 and 50. So then your entire your whole what you call the scope is much wider.